Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Kris. So this is a series that I have done. I started. Unfortunately, this is the fourth video. I did the other three. For whatever reason, just got sidetracked and stopped. So I was told, please finish, get back into it. So it was 17 videos when I stopped. It's 23 now. So not a whole lot extra, but yeah, I'm behind. So we're going to go ahead and start that. Before we do get started, click here. You can clack there. I already am. All right. And then there's a thanks button here. You can click on donate to the channel. I've got some dinner. So, am I glitching again? Hold on. Am I better? Of course I'm not. Why would it be better? You know what I mean? Probably even worse. All right. Let's get into it.
In the last episode of our series on the early history of the Ottoman Empire, we covered how the Ottomans, under the leadership of Sultan Murad I, won a string of victories in the Balkans, and in doing so, secured a foothold in Europe, where the Ottomans would remain for the next 600 years. In this episode, we will explore deeper into the reign of Murad I, with a focus on his other military campaigns in the Balkans, and the beginnings of Ottoman expansion into the region of Anatolia. Hey history fans, as you know, the YouTube kings thumbs, Valentinos, Watche descriptors, and much of it's a sizable In the aftermath of the Battle of Maritsa, a sizable portion of the Balkans had fallen either under the direct control or vassalage of the Ottomans, as the armies of Murad I reigned supreme in the region. After the political treaties of 1372 and 1373, with his new Balkan vassals, Murad had successfully built a network of allies in the southeastern European peninsula, from which he could request levies for his ever-growing military. To shore up the loyalty of his newly acquired Balkan vassals, Murad, during the spring of 1373, would request the participation of Byzantine Emperor John V Palaiologos and a portion of his armies in the recent border skirmishes against the Turkic Kandahrid Beylik in Anatolia. Seeing no way to escape his helpless situation, John V appointed his eldest son, Prince Andronikos Palaiologos, to administer the Byzantine capital while he joined the main Ottoman host under Murad in Anatolia. However, upon the departure of his emperor father, the young Byzantine prince, who was discontent with being a vassal of Murad, would conduct a successful palace coup against his family and declare himself emperor. As the Palaiologos dynasty was again in civil war, tensions within the House of Osman would also be boiling. By the time of the Byzantine palace coup, Murad I had 3 sons from his various marriages, the eldest to youngest being Shehzada Bayezid, Shehzada Yakup, and Shehzada Sevgi. Perhaps seeing that he had no real chance of succeeding to the Ottoman throne, the youngest of these sons, Shehzada Sevgi, would mirror Andronikos IV, rebelling against his father and seizing the Ottoman capital city of Bursa, where he declared himself Sultan. Hearing the news of their rebellious sons, Murad I and John V would halt their Anatolian campaign and proceed to march their armies against their respective disobedient children. The simultaneous Ottoman-Byzantine civil wars would see Murad first marching on and capturing the city of Bursa in a short siege. However, Sevgi would successfully escape the siege and make his way down to the village of Kite to meet up with the bulk of his newly recruited army. This host consisted primarily of Anatolian Turkomans, displeased with Murad's policy of recruiting new Muslim converts from the Balkans into the Ottoman army.
It is some balls to side with the son and to try to lead a revolt when you don't know how many other people around the Ottoman Empire are on board with you. How many more do you think Murad could pull from all the surrounding areas and just lock you into this town and kind of siege warfare, so to speak, and the town either is wiped out, son included, Or the town turns on the son and either kills him or delivers him to the father, Murad. Because right now, he might have been able to start a coup, but it's awful ballsy to think that you're going to get enough people to turn against the father. Unless the father is just completely terrible.
Engagement near Kite, the numerically superior forces of Murad would defeat the forces of Sevcir, thus capturing the Ottoman prince in the process. Although Murad kindly advised his rebellious son to confess and repent for his guilt for his failed revolt, Sevcir responded to him with cruel and harsh words, which resulted in his blinding and later execution on the orders of his father. Meanwhile, back in Europe, with the help of Ottoman troops, John V forced his usurper son's hand into surrendering the imperial throne after only a 1-month reign. Although Murad implored him to blind his rebellious son, John, in an act of mercy, would instead settle for the imprisonment and partial blinding of Andronikos, thus officially bringing an end to the simultaneous Ottoman-Byzantine civil wars of 1373. However, conflicts in the Palaiologos household would persist into the foreseeable future. Between 1366 and 1369, John V went on a series of European tours to gather military and fiscal support against the recently expanding Ottomans in the Balkans. The desperate Byzantine emperor would first visit the Kingdom of Hungary and seek the support of King Louis I, to no avail. He then made his way west to Rome to meet up with Pope Urban V. Proposing to end the schism between the Western Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches as a last-ditch way to gather up Western support against the Ottomans, John V converted to Catholicism in St. Peter's Basilica and recognized the Pope as the supreme head of the church. However, on his journey back home to Constantinople, the Byzantine emperor was detained by Venetians, to whom he was in serious debt. The Venetians forced him to concede the island of Tenedos, a strategic island near the mouth of the Dardanelles. However, this action would place the Byzantine emperor in the middle of the Venetian-Genoese rivalry over the hegemony of the Mediterranean, which would strain both crucial maritime trading cities' relationship with Constantinople. After years of failed promises,
I'm going to guess Murad didn't know that he was out trying to build an army to settle a score.
from the west, being surrounded by the armies of Murad and facing economic strains at home, the Orthodox populace of Constantinople had begun to feel alienated by their now Catholic monarch. During the March of 1376, 10 Venetian ships had arrived at the gates of Constantinople to conclude the long-awaited annexation of Tenedos in return for paying the emperor 30,000 ducats in cash, as well as returning the prestigious Byzantine crown jewels, which were given to the Doge back in 1343 by Emperor John's late mother to secure finances during a previous Byzantine civil war. Hearing the news of their rivals' recent actions to acquire Tenedos, the Genoese, based in their colony in Galata near Constantinople, would engineer the escape of Andronikos from prison and whisk the former emperor over to Galata. After hearing the news of Andronikos' escape, Sultan Murad decided to play factions in Constantinople off one another. First, the Sultan lent a cavalry force to the escapee Byzantine emperor to overthrow his father. During a short summer siege, Andronikos IV's forces would storm into Constantinople and imprison John V and his second eldest son and co-emperor Manuel in the dungeons of the Tower of Animes. As a reward for their assistance in reclaiming his throne, Andronikos would award the Genoese the disputed island of Tenedos, and the Ottomans the peninsula of Gallipoli, which Murad had lost during the Savoyard Crusade back in 1367. With war with Venice looming over him, the issue of Tenedos, and facing supply issues in the capital, the reigns of Andronikos IV and his son, and newly crowned co-emperor John VII, were a time of crisis for the Byzantine Empire. By the end of 1376, an alliance of Venetian warships and pro-John V Byzantine forces would successfully capture the island of Tenedos in a straightforward military operation before making an ambitious naval attack on Constantinople the following summer. Although unsuccessful, the attack on the capital worsened Andronikos' hold on power within the city, as Constantinople faced a major food shortage. Events in the capital would only get worse for the Byzantine emperor, as in the summer of 1379, John V and his son Manuel II had successfully escaped their captivity in the capital and made their way to the court of Murad as a last resort to regain their prominence. The Sultan of the Ottomans would once again take on the role of kingmaker, deciding to help John V. The latter offered him a larger yearly tribute, in addition to the last remaining Byzantine possession in Anatolia, the town of Philadelphia. Accepting the desperate John's most generous offer, Murad would supply the exiled emperor with an army. By the end of the summer, the forces of John V and Manuel II would storm into Constantinople after a short standoff with the city's garrison. However, before the fall of the city, Andronikos IV and his household escaped to Genoese Galata. There, the deposed emperor would continue to press his claim for the throne, until a political agreement was settled between the two Byzantine factions in 1381, granting Andronikos IV and his son John VII jurisdiction over the town of Salembria near the imperial capital.
Why would you allow your son... hiccups. Why would you allow your son to return? I mean, no offense, but I think Murad had the right goal when he blinded and then later executed his son. And I'm not saying executing your children is a good thing, but on this one, in the epic words of Chris Rock, I understand. And I think John V is making a mistake.
In the following years, Venice and Genoa would also agree to depopulate the island of Tenedos and destroy its fortifications, thus effectively creating a neutral zone. In the grand scheme of things, this latest round of Byzantine civil wars would benefit the young Ottoman state. It had squeezed major concessions from Constantinople in the form of the Gallipoli Peninsula, which would give Murad I the opportunity to once again move his armies freely between Asia and Europe. As the wars in Europe settled for the time being, Murad would turn his gaze to Anatolia and its complex domestic scene. Ever since the fall of the Sultanate of Rum at the beginning of the century, the region of Anatolia had been ruled by a collection of Turkic beyliks, ranging from the Aegean coast to the west all the way to the Taurus Mountains to the east. Although border skirmishes between states were quite common, a new informal political consensus was formed in Anatolia by these various Turkic beyliks during the century, which assured a steady peace between their ruling families. Initially, the Ottomans were merely one of these petty beyliks among many, but by the reign of Murad I, this was no longer the case. As they now owned large swaths of territories in Europe, the sons of Osman had become the most prestigious Turkic noble family in the region. By the start of the 1370s, the Karamanid Beylik, who saw themselves as the inheritors of the Sultanate of Rum from their former Seljuk capital of Konya, had begun a series of military operations against their weaker neighbours, the Yamayanid, Hamidid and Areshnid Beyliks. Seeing an opportunity to make gains in Anatolia without disrupting the informal political consensus of the region, Murad opted to marry his eldest son, Shahzada Bayezid, to the daughter of the Bey of the Yamayanid Beylik as part of a pact of friendship. As a dowry from his daughter to the Ottomans, the Yamayanid ruler, Suleiman Bey, would also offer Murad the towns of Kertaya, Tavshanla, Emit and Simav. In addition to creating a steady relationship with the region's most powerful ruler of the Turkic states.
Wait a minute. I just lost track of what I was trying to say. Hold on. How am I trying to phrase this? Okay. He gave up 4 towns, cities. I guess I'm Am I considering that kind of like a dowry for the husband? But I guess I'm not understanding why he gave up the 4 as a sign of good faith, but it's his daughter. Wouldn't I don't know how this works, I guess. Wouldn't he have to give up something to marry the daughter? Apparently not. Or did they just marry and then as a sign of good faith, completely not related to the marriage, just to make sure that he had Murad on his side, he gave up those 4 towns. I'm going to guess those 4 towns were probably nothing towns to him. That's what's confusing me. I guess I'm linking the giving up the 4 towns with a dowry, and that is where my mind is confused. But I can't consider it a dowry. It's just a good faith, a gesture. Probably also to make sure that he can keep the peace. Philadelphia, huh? Yeah. I know somebody who was born in Philadelphia. They were born and raised. Actually, on the playground is where they spent most of their days. Chilling out, maxing, relaxing. Okay, we're done.
Suleiman Bey also gained a physical buffer in the form of the Ottomans against his openly hostile neighbour to the east. During the large wedding reception in Bursa, Murad and his household would be greeted by the major Turkic noble families of Anatolia, many of which sought protection from the Ottoman ruler against the Karamanids. For example, the Bey of the Hamidids, Hussein Bey, would also offer Murad the towns of Akshehir, Yalvaç, Beyshehir, Seydeshehir and Isparta in exchange for 80,000 gold ducats and protection from the Karamanids, which the Ottoman leader eagerly accepted. Overnight, the Ottomans would become the guarantors of peace in western Anatolia, as Murad's domains now split off the region from the Karamanids. Still wishing to keep the peace in Anatolia, Murad I would offer his daughter's hand to the leader of the Karamanids, Alaeddin Ali Bey. Securing peace in Anatolia for the time being, Murad would once again turn his attention to Europe, as he planned to expand his rule further into the Balkans. Justified or not, Murad believed that his network of vassals in the region was plotting against him, and that they were too weak to provide for his armies. Whether or not Bulgarian Tsar Ivan Shishman was still loyal to Murad as his vassal did not matter, for during 1381, Ottoman raids into Bulgaria were resumed by local Ottoman border lords. This raiding snowballed into a full-scale war between Edirne and Tarnovo. After that, Murad I personally led an Ottoman army into Shishman's territories, defeating his forces near the town of Zlatitsa, before ordering his much-trusted tutor Lala Shahin Pasha to besiege the major Bulgarian city of Sofia. Moreover, after the Byzantine emperor's son and co-monarch Manuel II seized the city of Thessaloniki to gather up support in the region and lead a resistance against the Ottomans, the city was put under siege in 1383 by the forces of Grand Vizier Jandali Halil Pasha the Elder. After a lengthy siege, Sofia's garrison surrendered to Ottoman forces in 1385, and another wave of Turkic migrants from Anatolia made their way into the region. It would be after this military campaign that the first Ottoman Timur's military...
Sorry, let me go back. Why is Murad allowing the Byzantines to continue to rule here? I'm asking you, like, you knew him personally. Why? Ask him why he allowed that. And because in this moment, I understand he has them completely. I mean, if the Byzantines want to sneak help up this way, then they have to go through all of this. And they're basically they could be cut off. You want to go this way, you have a little better opportunity to get some ships in here. But what's stopping him from just crushing Johnny boy? Unless he just doesn't view him as a threat, but it's just a big swath of land that I mean, it would be nice to own. If you live here and you got to get in a ship and cross over here instead of just going over. I'm asking. I obviously know the answer. I'm just asking for a friend who doesn't know. My dogs have no idea, and I'm trying to explain it to them. They don't understand it, so if somebody could help me explain it better, that'd be great.
It would be after this military campaign that the first Ottoman timars, military fiefdoms, were distributed in the Balkans, thus paving the way for creating a Balkan military class within the Ottoman government. Ottoman successes on the battlefield would continue in 1387, when the city of Thessaloniki fell to the forces of the Ottoman Grand Vizier, thus depriving John V of his second largest city. In addition to major cities in the Balkans falling to Ottoman rule, Murad's armies pushed into modern-day Serbia and Albania, capturing Niš in 1386. An Albanian army was defeated at the Battle of Savra in 1385, and the Ottomans temporarily occupied the towns of Kruja, Berat, and Ulcini, and permanently the town of Kastoria. However, during this period, the Sultan faced his first military roadblock, as the newly formed Principality of Moravian Serbia became the center for resistance in the Balkans against his rule. Born from the ashes of the former Serbian Empire, Moravian Serbia, led by its prince Lazar Hrebeljanović, had become the strongest of the petty Serbian successor states in the region. With acquiring the domains of his fellow Serbian lords, Vuk Branković and Nikola Altamanović, Lazar looked poised to construct a Balkan coalition to push the Ottomans back to Anatolia. He had already defeated a major Ottoman raiding party during the Battle of Dubrovnica during the winter of 1381. However, after the sudden fall of Niš, the Serbian prince, perhaps in an attempt to buy time for the formation of his coalition, concluded a temporary deal with Murad, which would see him supply the Sultan's armies with 2,000 of his troops and begin paying tribute to Edirne. After multiple years of successful European campaigns, Murad's recently established peace in Anatolia slowly fell apart. The relatively sudden rise of Ottoman hegemony had seen the political scene in the region steadily become unstable, as minor Turkic beys sought to play off the Ottomans against the number 2 power in the area, the Karamanids. Since the dynastic marriages of 1381, the political borders of Anatolia had not changed, except for the eastern quadrant of the Kandarid Beylik, whose beys declared for Murad in 1384. However, the steady peace would be broken in 1386, when Alaeddin Ali Bey began his invasion of western Anatolia by capturing the Ottoman town of Beyshehir. Hearing the news of his treacherous son-in-law, Murad called forth his banners and formally declared war against the Karamanids. Accompanied by his 2 sons, Bayezid and Yakub, the Ottoman forces of Kara Timurtash Pasha, a contingent of vassal troops from Constantinople led by John V, and forces from his Serbian vassals, Murad now had a grand army numbering around 40 to 70,000 men. In command of the largest Ottoman force ever.
Okay, so I guess I understand why he didn't remove John V, because he's really not a problem. And he can still kind of use him. And by not attacking him, I guess he isn't really causing problems with the Byzantines. He is allowing them to stay there. Even though I know Constantinople, or Istanbul now, I believe, was, man, they fought over that bad boy all the time. It's okay. He's allowing someone else to hold it. Okay, who am I to say?
Murad wintered with his troops in Bursa before marching on the Karamanid capital of Konya during the spring of 1387. The forces of Alaeddin Ali and Murad I would meet on the Konya plain near the Karamanid capital itself. Murad I and his retinue of Kapikulu soldiers were positioned in the middle of the Ottoman battle line, alongside the forces of Timurtash Pasha. At the same time, his sons Bayezid and Yakub led the left and right flanks, accompanied by Serbian and Byzantine vassal troops and Ottoman cavalry. The following engagement, which would later be known as the Battle of Frenk-Yazizi, would begin with a general Ottoman charge on the disorganized and ill-disciplined forces of the Karamanid Bey. Within minutes, the Karamanid lines would break from the weight of the Ottoman charge, and a full-scale Karamanid rout was underway.
Within minutes? I'm sorry, I don't even know the name. Ali Baba, Ali, that's your name now. Why would you have started a fight that your men clearly are not ready for? Jeez.
Easily routing the Karamanid army, Murad stormed into the Karamanid capital city of Konya, where his son-in-law had locked himself with his household in the city's fortress. The now disgraced and defeated Alauddin Ali Bey called forth his Ottoman wife, Melek Hatun, to negotiate with her father to ask for forgiveness for his actions.
Ugh. I mean, Murad did kill his own son who rebelled against him, so I don't know why you should be saved. Other than he might want to be nice to his daughter, but I'll be honest, dude, you don't really deserve it. Then again, Murad's, I'll say, been more patient than I would be. More lenient, that's the word.
After much pleading from his daughter, Murad reluctantly pardoned the Karamanid Bey and returned to Bursa after collecting his war concessions from Konya. In a single military campaign, the sons of Osman had showcased to the rest of Anatolia that they were the new premier power of the region. Murad's victory at Frankasisi would also display Ottoman superiority in battle tactics, based on heavy infantry in tight formations, compared to the classical Turkoman tactics of disorganized Ghazi infantry and cavalry employed by the Turkic beyliks of the region. As Sultan Murad I and his forces reigned supreme in Anatolia, a new threat in the Balkans in the form of a certain enthusiastic Serbian prince would arise in the region. In the next episode, we will go over the last...
You just went to battle with him, man. My goodness, there's a lot of backstabbing that takes place. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we're going to end it here. I want to make sure.
Years of Murad's reign and his wars of expansion in the Balkans, resulting in the infamous climax during the Battle of Kosovo. We'll talk more about early Ottoman history in future videos, so make sure to subscribe and press the bell button to see the next video in the series.
Okay, well, we're going to end this here. Just so much backstabbing. Just amazes me. Sorry. Okay, well, until next time, when there's probably going to be just as much backstabbing. Have a good day, have a good night.